Bet horse racing on DRF Bets. We'll match your first deposit of $200. Get free expert picks and past performances, plus weekly cash back. All from DailyRacingForm, the most trusted name in horse racing.
Dan Illman, Mike Beer, race number 5 at Keeneland on Breeders' Cup Saturday is the Dirt Mile, a two-turn Dirt Mile. Let's take a look at this field. $1 million is the purse. Cody's Wish, Mike, is the 5-2 morning line favorite in this race. He took down a big scalp last time out sprinting in the form of Jackie's Warrior, who will be the big favorite in the Breeders' Cup Sprint later on Saturday. He's done well around two turns. I think some folks wonder if he's a little bit of a tweener, though, maybe more of a late-running sprinter than a true two-turn horse.
That might be fair to wonder about this horse. And he's obviously very talented. He keeps getting better. And he's more than anything else, he's just really overcome the gait issues that plagued him as a younger horse. Those are all positives, but he really has been at his best around one turn so far.
We are expecting a fast pace in this race, according to our Timeform US pace projector. Chad Brown has the 3 pipeline in here. He was part of the pace in the forego when beaten by late-kicking Cody's Wish last time out. Gunite wheels back on short notice for Steve Asmussen. And Laurel River, who's won sprinting, who's won going long. His tactical speed is a strong weapon.
Yeah, true enough. It'll be interesting to see how this race shakes out early, Dan, because I listen, there's a lot of talented horses in here. I think it's a really good field, and certainly horses who want to be forward in their races, but I don't necessarily feel like this has to be a blazing pace.
Slow Down Andy's a really underrated horse, the number 1 for Redham Racing and Doug O'Neill. Graded stakes winner on dirt at 2, graded stakes winner this year on turf. And he's coming off an okay performance in the Awesome Again, going 1 1/8. Let's watch Slow Down Andy. Maybe this grade 1 Awesome Again wasn't the strongest addition we've seen in recent years, but Slow Down Andy ran his usual fine race. DeFunded got the jump on him.
Yeah, I mean, he sat right up close to the horse that winds up winning, who was cutting the pace the entire way. He's just finishing evenly here, Dan. He can't make up any ground. He's going to lose second very late in the game to Country Grammar. He ran fine in here. It's a new top figure for him. He has to improve again.
Simplification was an excellent 3-year-old in the spring down in South Florida. He won the Fountain of Youth. He was a close third in the Florida Derby. He ran just fine in the Kentucky Derby. He bled in the Preakness, and that necessitated a little bit of a break. He's had 2 starts since, both at longer distances. I kind of like him cutting back to a mile, Mike, and I'd like to see him revert to those rating tactics that worked so well in the Fountain of Youth.
Yeah, I agree with all that stuff. I can't say that I was ever a huge fan of his, even early on while he was making his way to the Kentucky Derby. He just kept running good races. I couldn't really talk myself into this horse. I recognize that he's a lot better than I ever gave him credit for. And I do like him cutting back to a shorter distance here. I still don't love him, Dan, but I do think he's a contender in this race.
Layoffs have sort of been the bane for the talented pipeline. The number 3 is a 4-year-old with only 9 lifetime starts. When he's right, he's shown some talent running some fast races. That first level allowance going a 1-turn mile at Aqueduct in his first start of the year is evidence of that. They tried him 1 1/8 in the Monmouth Cup. He caught a sharp stablemate. I think that distance was a little far for him. And last time out in the forego, he made Jackie's Warrior work, and he held in there pretty gamely for third. He's going to show some speed in here, and I still think he has some upside.
Yeah, I think those things are true. I mean, if nothing else, in the forego last time, for him to be engaged, he was the one who sort of took the race to Jackie's Warrior while Cody's Wish sat at the back and then came with a big finish and ran by him late, but he still ran well. I'm still undecided as to how good I think this horse is, Dan, but he has run some really big races, and I do think he can make the lead in here.
Law Professor is the number 4. This horse going out for Rob Actress, who took him over the spring, got a stakes win in a very rich restricted event on the turf, and Actress took a shot in a short field last time out. It was the Woodward. It was against a major top handicap horse in Life is Good, and for a very brief second as we turn into the stretch, Law Professor gave Life is Good a scare. He got to within Life is Good's flank. Life is Good is just too good, but Law Professor is back in good form, and cutting back to a mile is good for him.
Yeah, I agree with that. He did run well in here. He's never going to beat Life is Good, but just the fact that he kept it within range as well as he did all through the stretch here, this is a really good performance. He is a grade 2 winner around a 2-turn mile. That was a race that was rained off the grass. but he still ran another 95 buyer that day. I don't think his best race is going to be good enough to beat this field. I think he's got to find a way to take a step forward or to fall into the right kind of trip here that sort of works to his advantage.
We posed the question if Cody's Wish is a little bit of a tweener, and I think the same has to be asked of the number 5 Gunite. 6 furlongs might be a little bit sharp for him, especially against the likes of a Jackie's Warrior, and a 2-turn mile could be pushing it as well. There's one thing I don't doubt. This horse's tenacity and heart. He won the Grade 1 Hopeful as a 2-year-old. He was so game when running second to Jack Christopher in the Jerkins. Since then, he's been very good. He's won 2 in a row, including this race, the Perryville restricted for 3-year-olds. And I think it's great that Steve Asmussen is wheeling this horse back in 2 weeks.
Yeah, I think that's a good sign too. He wins this race, pretty easily, Dan. Very confidently ridden down to outside the 8th pole, and then he just moves away in the late stages in this race. Good performance here. Another new top figure. He's clearly in the best form of his life right now. He's never been 2 turns. That's the major question right now.
I love that he changed leads on cue in this race, something he didn't do at Churchill, something he didn't do in the Jerkins. Maybe he's feeling good right now. And just look at these fast races. 4 consecutive triple-digit buyers. Now he's got to do it going 2 turns, facing older horses for the first time. Laurel River, I won't be surprised if he goes off the favorite or a close second choice off of this performance. The Pat O'Brien last time out going 7/8 of a mile at Del Mar, he sat in just behind the leaders. He got a split turning into the stretch, and he beats a pretty good field, and he beats them pretty handily with a fast fig, a 1:08. He's won around a 2-turn mile in the past.
Yeah, his 2 starts prior to this one were both 2-turn miles, and he just blew fields out in those races. He got a perfect trip in this race, but just look at him finish that race off, Dan. That was a really impressive win. I love the way he ran through the wire in there. A horse who clearly had some issues early on. Baffert really couldn't keep him on the track, but he's got him in good form right now. I think he's going to be very tough in here.
Cody's Wish, the number 7, is a neck away from bringing a 7-race win streak to the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. Now, the only loss did come in his one and only start in that streak, going 2 turns. That was at Tampa Bay, but it was also his first race off the layoff. Let's watch the 4 go, a race in which we saw the speed from Jackie's Warrior and Pipeline. They're involved early. Cody's Wish settled at the back. He comes with a wide run. This is an underrated good horse coming off a very fast race, Mike. He's a major danger. 5-2 to me is a little bit light as he steps up against some of these tougher horses, but he certainly fits this race.
Yeah, I can't argue with any of that. I mean, I won't argue with them being the favorite either off of this performance. It's a really strong effort, and I realized it was on a little bit of a cutback in distance with a great setup. But maybe he gets another setup here, Dan. He's just going to be sort of sitting off the pace somewhere, waiting to make his run. And while he has, I think it's pretty clear that he's been at his best around 1 turn so far. I'm not that worried about him taking on the 2-turn mile here.
8 is informative, and he's pulled off some upsets in his life. Remember the Salvatore Mile of 2021? That happened to be a 2-turn mile, and he won that race at 79-1. He also won the Island 2 starts back at 14-1. Now, both of those races have come at Monmouth Park, and that seems like to be his favorite track. Last time out in the Woodward, he finished behind Law Professor, but he kind of did some of the donkey work, chasing Life is Good.
Yeah, it sort of took him out of his game there. It's not how this horse really wants to race, I don't think. I just feel like they're going to sit back here and try to make one run. When he pulled off, I guess what would be his signature win, Dan, that Salvatore Mile last summer, big contested pace in front of him, sat last, and came rolling through the stretch. I think they'll try similar tactics here. The
number 9 Cyberknife is one of the more talented horses in this race naturally. He won the Haskell at a mile and an 8-3 starts back. He beat 2 very good horses. Taba, who of course won the Pennsylvania Derby, and we'll see him in the Classic. Jack Christopher, probably the best 1-turn 3-year-old in the country. He ran fine in the Travers, no match for Epicenter. The Pennsylvania Derby kind of got a little bit farther back than usual, and he was running on at the end. I like him turning back to a mile. I think he fits very well from a class standpoint.
I agree. I like him cutting back a little bit for this race too. Not that I don't think he's, just as good maybe at 9 furlongs, but I don't mind them cutting him back to the mile here. And more than anything else, the Pennsylvania Derby last time, I think after he got bumped at the start of that race, Giroux just sort of took a hold of him and decided, we're not going to go aggressively here. We're going to sit back and try to run from out of it. It didn't really work out, but he ran fine. I do think he's a major contender in here. I'll be interested to see what kind of price he is.
The number 10, Senor Buscador, is coming into this race off of a rallying win, going a one-turn mile in the Grade 3 ACAC. I think he's a little bit underrated. He ran just fine when third behind Laurel River, going two-back, going 7/8 of a mile. He is a horse that can benefit if the pace is fast. I'm not that concerned about two turns for him. He's going to be a price, and he can sneak into your numbers at a price.
Yeah, I'm going to use this horse. I think there will be enough pace in here to set up his run. I liked his win last time in the ACAC. He actually made an early move in that race to get himself involved and then went on with it. He ran really well behind Laurel River 2 starts back. He was wide every step of the way in there while Laurel River just set a perfect trip in behind.
3 Technique is the number 11. These connections have done a fine job with him. They claimed him for 40,000. They've gotten a stakes win. They've gotten a graded stakes placing. No match for Senor Buscador last time out, but I do like him more around one turn A. B, I think this is a very tough situation from a class standpoint, and it's not a great post position.
It's not, and we'll see what kind of trip he's going to be able to pull in here. He was very close with Cody's Wish 2 starts back, though, in that one-turn mile. Listen, I was a big fan of this horse early on. I was a little surprised that it kind of felt like he wasn't ever going to pan out, but these connections, since they've claimed him, they've done a great job with this horse.
Let's take a look at our top selections for the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. Laurel River coming off that gigantic Buyer speed figure, going 7/8. I love his tactical speed. He'll be right in the mix when they turn for home, Mike.
Yeah, I think he will be. And I just feel like there's maybe another forward move with this horse, Dan. He's in really good form right now. It feels like everything is clicking for this horse after, somewhat of a stop and start beginning to his career. I really liked his last race.
I'm hoping your pace analysis is right and that Pipeline can get away with at least going to the front without dealing with a fast pace. If he can go a fair pace and he runs one of his fast races, he's a big threat at a pretty solid number. 3,765 for me, 6,750 for Mike. Good edition of the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile at Keeneland on Saturday.